Virgin Most Powerful Radio, sharing the gospel with clarity and charity.
And now, Virgin Most Powerful Radio is pleased to present Hands-On Apologetics with renowned Catholic author and apologist, Gary Michuta.
And welcome, everybody. Hands-On Apologetics. You have entered into Virgin Most Powerful's Apologetics Dojo, and it's great to be with you today to do this thing we call Hands-On Apologetics. Learn how to explain, defend the faith with clarity, charity, and confidence. Got a great show in store for us. We're going to have our good friend Deacon Steve Clifford come on the show on the other side of the break. As you know, he's a convert from Mormonism and now a Catholic deacon, and he has a wealth of information about Mormonism. And we're going to look at one of their key doctrines known as eternal progression, which is, I think most Catholics aren't familiar with, that their belief that God the Father is a man of flesh and bone. He once was like we were, and then he was exalted to godhood, I guess you could say. And now he is the God of our particular universe. And guess what? And you, if you're a good Mormon, you can become a god and have your own universe as well. So he's going to be coming up on the other side of the break. Very interesting stuff. I want to thank everybody. Yesterday, as you know, we kind of had a blowout on the show, which is really sad, too. Great interview with Sue Ellen Broader on Sex and the Catholic Feminist. It's put out by Ignatius Press, and I didn't get a chance to give a shout out because, as you know, right before the third segment, the Midwest Command Center suffered a catastrophic failure. And the funny thing is, right before the show, I just had this weird thought, like, boy, I haven't experienced any spiritual warfare lately. I wonder if I'm slacking. And then, of course, so I offered a prayer of thanksgiving to God and trusted myself in his hands. And then sure enough, out of the blue, the mixer blew. So I also want to thank Terry Barber. Man, thank God for him being in studio. He heard the blowout, jumped into the dojo command center seat and conducted the rest of the interview. Of course, Terry is a major pro-life warrior, so it was perfect fit for him. And he handled it beautifully. I feel terrible that he had to cut some of his show prep down. But nevertheless, hey, we at the dojo salute you and thank you, Terry, and also you, Richard, behind the boards there for keeping the dojo running and giving Sue Ellen a chance to talk about her book, because man, this book, I tell you, if we need to understand the history of the pro-death movement, and Sue Ellen has uncovered all sorts of fascinating discoveries about the history of feminism, and they're embracing the sexual revolution. So please pick up that book. I also want to thank you, the audience, because of your prayers, your financial support. The dojo is back up and running, and apparently all systems are go. And thank you for keeping us in your prayers. Thank you for supporting us financially, because without you, we just wouldn't be. And also, thank you so much for your prayers for my appearance on Sam Shamoun's podcast. Sam Shamoun, evangelical Christian who is expert in Islamic apologetics. He's one of those more combative evangelicals with a large following. Some of you might be familiar with Christian Prince or Acts 17. Well, anyway, Sam has been moving closer to the faith that he grew up in, which is the Assyrian Church. And so he's been having some Catholic speakers come onto his channel, which is predominantly evangelical. And so last night I defended the Deuterocanon. And, so thank you, Sam, if you're listening to the program. I really appreciate it. You're a good brother in Christ, and you're definitely in my prayers, along with our audience, because, you're going to face opposition especially when you're rediscovering the historic church and you want to come into communion with the church. You're going to get opposition. So please keep them in your prayers as well. And also, thank you so much for praying for me. I think it went well. It was really cool. Actually, Matt Fradd was in the chat room, so it got a little intimidating. But I was very thankful because knowing that he was in the chat room, I didn't have to focus on what was going in there, and so I could focus more on my presentation. So Matt, if you're listening, thank you for being there. And also there's a couple other Catholic apologists there too. Hey, thanks guys, I appreciate it. All right, so let's, without further ado, why don't we jump to the Finding the Fallacy and Meet the Early Church Father segment. The Finding the Fallacy for today is a Latin fallacy, the Tu Quoque fallacy, also known as yeah and you. Okay, I guess that would be the rough Latin translation. The Tu Quoque basically is an appeal to hypocrisy. It's used, for example, I've encountered it a lot. For example, if you're discussing something, let's say abortion, and you make the case that it is morally indefensible to kill an innocent and helpless unborn baby. And the response is, well, you pro-lifers, you don't care what happens to the mother. You know, where have you adopted children of crisis pregnancies? Where have you helped, you know, all this other stuff, yada, yada, yada. Now, that's a Tu Quoque fallacy. Why? Because they're not addressing the problem at hand. Really, what they're doing is they're changing the topic, and they're trying to appeal to your hypocrisy, whether it's true or not, right? They're saying, yeah, but look at you. You don't follow this or that. And what do? Well, basically, it's the same technique you use when somebody does a red herring or ad hominem attack. You concede what you can, and then you refocus the argument. And if you can't concede it, at least concede it in theory. For example, yes, let's say that I didn't do X, Y, and Z. Let's say you're right, I am a hypocrite. But that does not affect the question, which is whether or not it's morally defensible to kill an innocent and helpless human being. And so what you do is you absorb the attack, and then you refocus it back to where it really should be. So the Tu Quoque fallacy, very, very common. And you know, it's funny, these informal fallacies, many times they kind of bleed into each other, because the Tu Quoque also is kind of a red herring. It's also kind of an ad hominem. It has all those aspects of trying to take you off the trail and change the subject to something else. And basically, like I said, what you need to do is absorb it, concede whatever you can, even hypothetically, just to show that even if what they say is true, it still doesn't change the discussion at hand. And that's our Finding the Fallacy today, the Tu Quoque fallacy, or the and you too fallacy. Let's jump to the Meet the Early Church Father. As you know, every episode we pick an early church father of the church, learn a little about their biographies, sometimes quote a little bit from their work. Today's early church father is Socrates Scholasticus, who was born sometime around AD 380, died after the year 439. He is Socrates has the cognomen Scholasticus, a term which has its root meaning that implies laziness or long-windedness, and therefore means he's a scholar, at least a lawyer in particular. So Socrates was a lawyer by profession. There's nothing much of value is known of Socrates' life. Now remember, this is not the philosopher, the ancient Greek philosopher Socrates. This is the early church father. He was born around the year 380 in Constantinople, where he was educated by pagan grammarians, Helidius and Ammonius, who had lately fled Egypt in consequence of disturbances following the cleansing of the Mithraeum and the destruction of the Serapeum by Theophilus, the bishop of Alexandria, and his uncle Cyril, who succeeded him. Socrates' history of the church is his solitary claim to fame, says Jurgen's Faith of the Early Fathers, which we base these episodes on. And the claim is definitely a solid one. So there are a handful of early church historians. Socrates, Scholasticus is one of them. He is known for his History of the Church, which was written AD 439. Jurgen says that Socrates is best equipped as a continuator of Eusebius Pamphili of Caesarea. As you know, Eusebius' church history, we quote an awful lot from him. It is interesting to observe that were we deprived of just a few early church historians like Eusebius, Socrates, Zosimon, Theodoret, we would, for the most part, lack a solid and continuous history of the church for the first 400 years. And it may be objected, no doubt, that the history could be mostly reconstructed from a multitude of from sources, and that's no doubt true. But at the same time, some of it has been lost entirely. Much of it would have been subject of less certain conjecture, and an enormous amount that we now take as a fact would remain somewhat under a cloud of uncertainty. So Socrates' History of the Church comes in 7 volumes, 7 books. It was written at the request of a certain Theodore, probably a monk or a cleric, whereas Socrates himself was a layman. The history is professedly a continuation of Eusebius' church history, which concluded his work in 323 AD, just prior to the Council of Nicaea in 325. Socrates backtracks a few years to 305 at the abdication of Diocletian because of the things that Eusebius omitted and because of the matters concerning Constantine and Arius. And that is our early church father for today, Socrates and Scholasticus. Coming up on the other side of the break, Deacon Steve Clifford. We're going to be talking about Mormonism. Stay tuned.
Join VMPR live on YouTube September 12th, 2020 for our latest free conference, The Ultimate Challenge. This exclusive virtual event will feature a brand new talk from Jesse Romero, How Apologetics Brought Me Back to Faith, plus never-before broadcast video presentations from Dr. Scott Hahn, Father Mitch Pacwa, and the late, great Father Benedict Groeschel. Go to vmpr.org to register now and get ready to face the ultimate challenge.
Pro-life across America, the Billboard people. Did you know my mom's gonna have a baby? She is? Will it be a boy? Or will it be a girl? We don't know yet, but we heard the heartbeat and my dad said this is gonna be someone very special. You mean like being a president? Or maybe a doctor? Well, probably maybe like a singer or dancer, I think.
Hello, my name is Marianne Koharski. I'm the director of Pro-Life Across America. We know that every baby is a miracle and has the potential to do great things. If you know someone who is pregnant or in need of alternatives or assistance, or would like to support the work of Pro-Life Across America, please call 1-800-366-7773 or visit our website at prolifeacrossamerica.org. Pro-Life Across America is non-political and totally educational.
Pro-life across America, the Billboard people.
This is Terry Barber. I want to thank you for your support here at Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Here's an easy way to do it. If you're going to sell or buy a house, call Real Estate for Life, 877-543-3871, because they're going to get you a Christ-centered agent to purchase your home or to sell your home. And at the close of escrow, a portion of his commission goes right back to Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Call 877-543-3871. Thank you so much for your support.
Now, back to Hands-on Apologetics with Gary Machuda. If you'd like to join the conversation, call 888-526-2151. Here's Gary.
And welcome back, everybody. Hands on Apologetics, and we're going to talk about Mormonism. And there's no better person I know to explore the different beliefs of Mormonism than our good friend Deacon Steve Clifford. Deacon Clifford was born and raised in Utah as a fifth-generation member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He served in the U.S. Air Force from 1968 to 1972, where he met and married his wife of 49 years while on assignment in West Germany. After receiving his undergraduate degree at Weber State College in Ogden, Utah, Deacon Steve served as a commissioned officer in the United States Army for 19 years, retiring at the rank of lieutenant colonel. He subsequently worked as a system analyst for a defense contractor for 16 years. Deacon Steve and his wife, Anna Rose, currently live in the Massanutten mountains within. Did I get that right, Steve? There we go. Yeah, okay. In Shenandoah Valley, I can pronounce that. He's a permanent deacon at St. John Bosco Catholic Church in Woodstock, Virginia. He has 2 married daughters, 8 living grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren, and 1 on the way. So congratulations.
Thank you, Gary. It's good to be here today.
I don't know why I have trouble with the name for the mountain.
Massanutten Mountains.
It's not hard. It's just
no.
When I look at it, I try to make it hard.
That's all right.
Yeah, beautiful part of the country too.
It is beautiful. Yep.
Yeah. So, well, you certainly have the background, Mormon background, to understand this. Being a 5th-generation Mormon. Member of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. There's so many unusual doctrines that I know a lot of Catholics don't understand. One of them's eternal progression. So I don't know where you want to start with that.
It's a big topic.
Yeah.
But I wanted to go into this a little bit. And what I'm going to be talking about is based on a diagram that was in a book called The Changing World of Mormonism by Gerald and Sandra Tanner. Mm-hmm. And I sort of modified the diagram a little bit, added a few things, but I'm going to be trying to talk through this diagram. It's a lot of information, so just kind of bear with me as we go along.
Okay.
I wanted to start with terminology. The Mormons use terminology that sounds familiar to us, but in fact it's different. And so one of the terms they use is called salvation. But salvation is really resurrection, and resurrection is available to everyone. And the other term you'll hear is exaltation. And exaltation means becoming a god, attaining godhood. And one of the Mormon sayings that I grew up with was, salvation without exaltation is damnation. And so exaltation is really the key goal in the Mormon thinking process. And then there's a term called Elohim. Elohim is God the Father. Elohim, I'll use that word and that term sometimes through the talk, but Elohim, or the God of this world, is in fact an exalted man who lived on a planet in another world, and he progressed to attain his own exaltation and become the God of this world. He had a son named Jehovah. Jehovah is his firstborn spirit son. The spirit brother of Jehovah is Lucifer, who we know as the devil. So in Mormon theology, Jehovah and Lucifer are brothers in the spirit world. And then I'm not going to go into the endowments and the temple ordinances, but that's one of the things that maybe we can talk about some other time. And of course, they have the 4 standard works: the Bible, the King James Version, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. And a lot of these unique Mormon doctrines come from the Pearl of Great Price, which is not necessarily well known to non-Mormons. Also, a lot of the doctrine that they have is outlined and defined in the Doctrine and Covenants. So to begin with, Mormons do not believe that God created out of nothing. They believe that there always was something. There always was what they call eternal matter. And this eternal matter eventually progresses into intelligent matter. And this intelligent matter is where everything comes from. And the eternal matter has no beginning. It always has been. The spirit children of God, the Father of this world, and his wife, or one of his wives, procreated billions of spirit children. And this is what the Mormons call the premortal existence. So all of us existed in a premortal state in the spirit world as children of God the Father and one of his wives. So these spirit children were born into the spirit world. And in the spirit world, there was a great war. And this war really came about as a disagreement between Jehovah and his plan for our salvation and Lucifer and his plan. And so during this war, the spirits kind of took sides. And 1/3 of the spirits fought valiantly on behalf of Lucifer. About 1/3 of the spirits fought valiantly for Jehovah. And then there were spirits in the middle between valiantly fighting for Jehovah and valiantly fighting for Lucifer. Those spirits who valiantly fought for Lucifer were cast out of heaven. So 1/3 of the spirit children of God the Father were cast out of heaven. And those spirits become the evil forces that surround the earth, that are on the earth right now. As a result of this war in heaven, those spirit children who fought most valiantly were merited to become children of God here on earth based on their merit in the premortal existence and how valiantly they fought. So the more valiantly one fought in the premortal existence, the better your existence is here on earth. And I remember growing up and being told that those of us, myself included, who were born into Mormon families in this last dispensation were those who fought most valiantly on the side of Jehovah. Those who fought less valiantly, they became kind of second-class citizens, if you will. And part of that second-class citizenship also involved the color of your skin. And so the darker the skin, the less valiantly the spirit fought in the premortal existence. So based on our merit in the premortal existence, we are given a body. And this body is needed in order to progress. You cannot progress to eternal exaltation without a body. So we must have a body. The first estate, what they call the first estate, is that pre-existing state, the spiritual state. The second estate is our earthly estate as children of God with bodies. So they believe that every spirit that is born into a body has a premortal existence. And our memory is erased when we're born into this world, but in fact they believe that we all existed and we all knew each other as children of God in the premortal existence. So those forces that were cast out and became the evil forces on earth have no chance of getting a body. Therefore, they have no chance of exaltation. And they are present in the world and will remain present in the world until the end of time. Now, all of us will go through death here on earth, the death of our earthly body. And so once we die, we go to what the Mormons call paradise. Paradise is for all of those who lived righteously or died without the gospel law. In other words, those who didn't know about the Mormon Church but still lived a good life. And actually, those who did not live such a good life also go to paradise. So basically, everybody that received a body gets to go to paradise.
Interesting.
Now, if you don't get introduced to the missionaries and their message of the Mormon gospel, the missionaries are still available, and they will preach in what's called spirit prison, what we would consider to be hell. And the missionaries are going to spirit prison, and they'll teach the Mormon gospel again. And it'll come in a little bit later on when we talk about the kingdoms. There are 3 different kingdoms that we're all striving for in heaven. But all who lived righteously die and go to paradise. Those who are evil go to spirit prison. The missionaries will preach to those who were evil in spirit prison and give them an opportunity to accept the gospel. And if they do, then they will take part in what's called the second resurrection. Now, the first resurrection are for those who go to paradise, not to spirit prison, but to paradise. And they will be part of the first resurrection. And this kind of separates those who are on their way to the higher kingdoms and those who in spirit prison have an opportunity to reach the lower kingdom in heaven.
Okay.
And once the first resurrection takes place at the end of the world, we have what's called the millennium, the reign of Christ on the earth, politically and spiritually for 1,000 years. And during that 1,000 years, Satan and his minions will be bound. So it'll be peace on earth for 1,000 years as we live through that part of our destiny, if you will, in the eternal progression. Those who go to spirit prison and accept the gospel message go to the judgment along with the good people.
Okay. Well, why don't we pause it right there? Here's
Sure.
Coming up.
Great.
We're chatting with Deacon Steve Clifford about eternal progression and Mormonism. Stay tuned, folks. More to come on the other side of the break.
Help the Helpless, a Minnesota St. Paul nonprofit organization chaired by Father of Tyr and volunteers, is humbly asking you for your kind support to help the poor and the handicapped children in India and Ecuador. Through financial support from the Help of the Helpless benefactors, the children are provided with clothing, food, education, shelter, and the teachings of the Catholic Church. The mission is to help children thrive and become self-sufficient young adults leading productive lives. We also provide aid to poor families in Ecuador with food baskets, medicines, medical assistance, and help with funeral needs for the deceased. The work in India is done by Father Antonio's organization, St. Mary's. In Ecuador, the work is being done by the Servant Sisters of the Home of Mother. You can call us at 877-762-8857. To learn more, please visit our website, www.helpthehelpless.org. God bless you. Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show, and they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow, that's 80%. realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
This is Jesse Romero. You're listening to Hands-On Apologetics with Gary Machuda on Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
And welcome back, everybody. We are chatting with Deacon Steve Clifford about doctrine of eternal progression in Mormonism. And Deacon Steve, I can see why they have to chart this out, because this really is complex, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty confusing, and I wish I could show everyone the diagram, and it'd be a little bit easier. And I'd be glad to make that available to you if anyone wants to see it. Okay. But yes, it is very confusing. And where I left off was talking about the literal 1,000-year reign of Christ on the earth, and he would reign as supreme king, both politically and spiritually, for 1,000 years. And during that 1,000-year reign of Christ, Satan, Lucifer, and all of his minions would be bound. And then at the end of the 1,000 years, those who are in spirit prison in hell achieve what's called the second resurrection. They too will be resurrected from spirit prison, and this includes the what they call the heirs to the celestial kingdom. And there's another category that's not used very often anymore, but it used to be pretty frequently heard: a son of perdition. And the son of perdition, the examples that are always used when I was growing up was Cain killed Abel, and therefore Cain is a son of perdition. Judas betrayed Jesus. Judas is a son of perdition. Others, I'm a son of perdition, I guess you could say, because those who apostatize from the Mormon church, those who leave the Mormon church and renounce their Mormonism, also become sons of perdition. And the sons of perdition literally have no chance of exaltation. And they do undergo the second resurrection, but they have no chance of exaltation, as I mentioned. So the second resurrection from the spirit prison and those who lived for 1,000 years during the millennium go to the judgment tribunal. There is a tribunal of 3 people that will sit in judgment on every single person that ever lived on the earth, to include those sons of perdition. And the 3 people on that judgment panel are God the Father, Jesus Christ, and Joseph Smith.
Wow.
And those 3 will determine where we're going for our eternal destination. And there are actually four places that we can end up. The worst place is a second death. And that second death casts those who are sons of perdition, and Satan and all of his followers are cast into this outer darkness, this second death. No chance for salvation, no chance for exaltation. Those who are deemed worthy go to one of 3 levels of the kingdom in heaven. The lowest level is called the celestial kingdom. And the celestial kingdom is reserved for the wicked of the world. So in other words, the most wicked people that ever lived on this earth are going to heaven. And they will be in this lowest level of the kingdom of heaven called the celestial kingdom. The middle kingdom is called the terrestrial kingdom. And this one is for honorable men and women who lived a righteous life, honorable life, but refused to accept Mormonism. And as I mentioned, everybody gets lots of opportunities to accept the Mormon gospel. And those who say, no, thank you, right up until the judgment, end up in the middle kingdom, the terrestrial kingdom. And then the highest kingdom is called the celestial kingdom. And this celestial kingdom is broken down into 3 levels within the celestial kingdom. So the bottom 2 levels in the celestial kingdom are for Mormons, especially Mormons that were not married in the temple. And so if you're not married in the temple, and that was what I was talking about a little bit earlier, that the temple ordinances, one of those ordinances is temple marriage. So every good Mormon man and woman need to be married in the temple in order to reach exaltation. And then the highest level in the celestial kingdom is godhood, becoming a god, having your own spirit children, and populating your own world with your own spirit children and lording over your own world. So godhood is the ultimate goal for every good Mormon male. And the woman's path to godhood is through the man. So the woman can only get to heaven through the man. And this is what the Mormons taught years ago. They've really, really tried to tone down a lot of these deeper doctrines, because for obvious reasons it's rather offensive to those of us who understand what the Bible tells us, and we also understand a totally different Trinity, 3 persons in one divine nature, as opposed to a plurality of gods like the Mormon doctrine is based on. So these are things that you wouldn't learn from the missionaries. These are things that you probably wouldn't hear about in your average ordinary Mormon meeting. And most of these deeper, darker doctrines and principles, most Mormons don't know about. And if you try to present something like this to a Mormon, they'll say, no, we don't believe in it. But in fact, everything that I've talked about, the Tanners, we owe a debt of gratitude to the Tanners for the research they did, going back to source documents and finding out exactly what was taught, who taught it, and where it is based in their standard works. And so it is there. It's not something that we're making up. It's something that is there and available for those who are willing to take the time and the effort to go out and find out about it.
Yeah, very good. That's so complex. I'm so glad that you broke it down for us.
Sure.
I have some questions.
Sure.
Earlier you mentioned that you need to receive exaltation in order to become a god.
Yes.
That is, you receive a body. Do Mormons believe the Holy Spirit is God, and does the Holy Spirit have a body?
Good question.
Yeah.
No, the Holy Spirit does not have a body. And the Holy Spirit is sort of is a spirit only. He's part of what they call the Godhead. So the Holy Spirit is not a God, but he's part of the Godhead. In other words, he helps in the decision-making process. And the Spirit is not really, they don't really view the Spirit as being a person. The Spirit is a feeling. So you can't really say that the Holy Spirit is a person in the Mormon theology. God the Father obviously is, because he has a body of flesh and bones. Jesus Christ is God because he has a body of flesh and bones. But the Holy Spirit does not. And so that's as I'd mentioned before, that's part of the real problem that we have with the Mormon theology and their understanding of the Godhead as opposed to the triune God that we believe in. And the belief in the Holy Trinity, the Blessed Trinity, is absolutely foundational to Christianity. And, and without that basic understanding of who God is, and that God is three separate persons in one divine nature, and especially who is Jesus Christ. Is he a man? Is he a spirit? Is he God in the appearance of man? Is he man under the influence of God the Father? So it's really important that we know who Jesus is. So, yes, he is God, but he is unique in the Trinity in that Jesus has not one nature, not one divine nature, but he has two natures, a divine nature and a human nature. God humbled himself and became one of us in the person of Jesus Christ, while still remaining the God, the creator of all things.
Yeah, beautifully put. Yeah, I was always confused about that because,
it
really comes out with that three-man tribunal where you said, God the Father, Jesus, and then Joseph Smith. You would expect the Holy Spirit to be the third.
No. And therein lies the dilemma for us that are reaching out to the Mormons.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can see the importance of Joseph Smith in this whole plan of progression for all of us, but it goes all the way back to the very beginnings. His personal testimony is absolutely foundational to the Mormons. And the fact that he's going to be there judging us at the end puts even more fear into a lot of people that I have to do what I'm told to do, because Joseph is going to be there to judge me.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And even the son of perdition thing that you mentioned as well, that if you leave Mormonism, you don't believe certain tenets of it, you could be a son of perdition. So you'd be on par with murderers like Cain and Judas.
Right. Exactly right. Yep.
I hear the music coming up, Steve. We're chatting with Deacon Steve Clifford about Mormonism and its doctrine of eternal progression. We got more to come on the other side of the break. You're listening to Hands on Apologetics.
Hi, this is Jesse Romero from the Terry and Jesse Show, also from Jesus 911. Let's face it, we all need to use the internet, but we need screen accountability. Why? Pornography is a huge problem, especially on the internet. And every time we tap into the internet, we get bombarded with images and temptations that degrade our humanity. So we need Covenant Eyes to block these pornographic sites and advertisements from infiltrating our lives. Covenant Eyes helps us take custody of our eyes and custody of our intellect. So I recommend you go to covenanteyes.com and type in the promo code VMPR to support the network. Protect yourself and your family from the imminent threats on the internet. www.covenanteyes.com, code VMPR, live porn free. Thank you for listening to Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Thank you. God bless you. Keep the faith.
This is Terry Barber. I want to thank you for supporting Virgin Most Powerful Radio. And here's an easy way to support us by going to smile.amazon.com and type in Catholic Resource Center or Virgin Most Powerful Radio. And when you log in your Amazon account and you purchase products, a portion of it will go right back in supporting Virgin Most Powerful Radio. And it doesn't cost you a dime. I want to thank you ahead of time because that supports us year-round. May God bless you and your family. Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow! That's 80%! realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Hands-on Apologetics with Gary Machuda. If you'd like to join the conversation, call 888-526-2151. Here's Gary.
And welcome back, everybody. Hands-on Apologetics, and we're chatting with Deacon Steve Clifford about the Mormon doctrine of eternal progression. Steve, I don't know if there's more to go into, but I have a couple other questions. For example,
Sure. I think I've pretty much covered it.
Okay.
Hopefully not too confusing for everyone.
So when God the Father received exaltation, you said that he has spirit wives and they populate spirit children. Now, these spirit wives also the wives that he married while before exaltation, or are these after? Or
No. These are wives that he brought with him. Okay. When he passed from his world, his second estate, through death, and he went through this same process, this same progression that I've just talked to you about. And he took his wives with him, and they continued to populate their spirit world after he was exalted along with his wife. And that's part of the reason why I've mentioned before the godhood exaltation is only available to those who are married in the temple. The marriage in the temple, in the Mormon temple, is considered a marriage not just for life, but for all time and eternity. And therefore, for a Mormon male who is married in the temple, he and his wife will remain married for all eternity. And after they die and attain godhood, they continue to procreate spirit children in the spirit world. And this gets into some of the deeper aspects of Mormonism. So obviously, if I want to pre-populate my spirit world here on earth, what I want to do is have multiple wives and have lots of children, so that when I die and go to the celestial kingdom, I've got a head start on everybody else. I've already got a whole bunch of spirit children. I've already got several wives that are going to help me to build up my spirit world. And then as soon as I'm ready and I have enough spirits to go out and populate my old world, then I can move on to being Lord and God over my own world and have my children worship me.
Now, I don't know if you can answer this, but I thought I remember reading that at least one time there was a teaching that polygamy was necessary for exaltation.
That's true. And to be honest with you, polygamy was never taken off of the books. They still believe that polygamy is a divinely instituted process in God's plan for our salvation. They do believe that polygamy will come back again, that those who were married, will at least be able to be recognized for their marriages. There is a large number of offshoots of the Mormon Church out in Utah, Arizona, and some of them ended up in Canada, in Idaho, at various places, who are still practicing polygamy as a part of their religion. Mm-hmm. And it's necessary. It's not necessarily for everyone, because back when polygamy was being practiced, the church determined who could take a plural wife. And so they would basically pick out the wife for you and say, this is a woman that you need to take as a second wife. Originally, I was told that the reason why polygamy was so important was because there were a lot of women and not very many men. And so the women needed somebody to take care of them. Therefore, the men took multiple wives in order to provide for them. But that's not necessarily true, because some of the women that were married in plural marriages were already married to other men.
Yeah.
And actually, that was part of what got Joseph Smith in trouble, was that he was going off and marrying some of his own followers' wives secretly, and so it's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, that's and that's very common too. I remember I took a history course at a secular college not far from my home, and the history teacher was teaching. When he was talking about polygamy in early Mormonism, he said, "Well, I was corrected by Mormons because this was all just they needed a legal title because there were so many women, there were very few men, and it was purely economic and nothing in reality." So
no, it's all based on doctrine. It's all based on populating the spirit world with as many children as you can.
Yeah.
And so if you can get a head start here on earth with multiple wives, better for you.
Yeah. Okay. Now, this is an odd question. Again, if you don't have an answer, that's fine. But it's something I could never wrap my mind around. If you have an exalted man of flesh and bones and his spirit wives, and they beget children, how is it that they beget spiritual children and not children of flesh and bone?
Right. Well, in the spirit world, and in on the way towards godhood, they're still able to produce spirit children, even though they may both have physical bodies. Their reproduction in the spirit world is spiritual reproduction. So they're basically populating their spirit world with spirits.
Okay.
And those spirits eventually will attain a body based on their merit in the spirit world with their father and mother.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I don't have all the answers, because I don't think the Mormons do either. There is a lot of their teachings that are really difficult to square with reality. Yeah. One is, if God is the father of this world, he must have a father from another world, and that father must have a father above him, which would make him my great grandfather to God, and so on and so forth. Well, who was the first father of all of these gods? There's no answer to that, because there just always was gods.
Yeah. That would definitely be problematic.
Yeah.
So there's no Adam equivalent of God. The first God who.
No.
And then even then you have a problem, because you just have a male.
Right. And the interesting thing about it too is that Brigham Young, the second leader of the Mormon Church after they went out to Utah, Brigham Young used to teach what was called the Adam God doctrine. Okay. They taught that Adam was God the Father, and that he came to this planet and fathered the first physical child of this earth. So Adam was God. Wow. And Eve was one of his wives from the spirit world. And the other interesting thing that was taught was that that it was God the Father that physically had relations with Mary to create Jesus. And so it's a physical thing. It's not a spiritual thing. The Holy Spirit wasn't the one that made it come about. It was actually physically achieved through God the Father in his physical body with the Virgin Mary.
Yeah, it seems as if Mormonism isn't very transcendent. It's everything is on the level of, well, it's just like what we do here, except a different level. so to speak.
Right.
It's nothing
Right.
beyond.
It is. And, one of the things that I've always found interesting about it is that oftentimes it seems that the Mormons are putting themselves in a position of being God. And they're putting God in a position of being man. And so they're exalting themselves and demeaning God. God is just one of us, but we want to be just like him. And so that's, it's backwards. It's all wrong. It puts us on the same footing as God, which, back in the Garden of Eden was the first temptation. God is just trying to keep all the good stuff to himself. Did he really say that to you? He's just trying to keep you from knowing good from evil. The temptation to be just like God.
Yeah, absolutely. We only have maybe a minute left, and just one question I know is out there. I mean, you were Mormon most of your life. How is it that you didn't know about these more esoteric teachings?
Part of that is because some of the things were touched on, but generally speaking, we tried to avoid it. And we especially tried to avoid any kind of conversations that involved these deeper teachings, because you simply don't have answers for them. And so when the missionaries come to your door and you try to throw this out at them, they're not going to engage because they're not going to have answers, first off. And second off, they believe it because they're told it, not because it makes sense, not because it's rational, but they believe it from blind faith, literally.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I'd like to talk about. And maybe if we can do this again, I've got several different topics I'd like to go into. I'd really like to dig deeper into the standard works of the Mormon Church and just kind of take them apart a little bit and try to understand, what that's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely have you back, and we'll go through the standard works.
Great.
Because this is really enlightening, and you did such a great job. I mean, that is a very complex system to understand. And
right.
So, thank you so much for doing that. Before
You're
we go,
welcome.
though, tell people a little bit about your website, where they can go to access some of your writings.
Sure. I have a website. It's a little bit dated because I'm a little busy as a deacon nowadays, but it's www.transporter.com. And there I have a lot of apologetics material. I also have material about Mormonism and about the Catholic Church, and a lot of pro-life material there as well. And my story, my conversion story, and a number of other things. But the website is there. I do have a lot of people that come and check it out. And the great thing about the Catholic Church is the doctrine doesn't change. So I may not update it all the time, but it's still good.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Deacon Clifford, for coming on.
Thank you, Gary.
All right, it's Deacon Steve Clifford. And coming up next, we have the Terry and Jesse Show, High Impact Catholic Talk coming at you. Thank you so much for listening. God willing, we'll be back again tomorrow to do this thing we call Hands-On Apologetics. Bye-bye, everybody.
In the 1990s, I lived and worked in Hollywood. But when my wife Betty's mom took ill, we relocated to Orange County. And it was during this time in our lives that I converted to Catholicism. Once my eyes were opened to the truth, I couldn't learn enough about the faith. But I had less free time than ever, especially with a long commute. That's when I discovered the real value of Catholic audio. Listening to cassette tapes transformed my daily commute into a miniature retreat. And that's the beauty of Virgin Most Powerful Radio today. Since the podcasts are archived, you can listen anytime on our smartphone app. I know how listening to Catholic audio can bring you closer to Christ and His Church. So I encourage you to visit the App Store or go to vmpr.org and download the app today. It just might change your life. I'm Matthew Arnold for Virgin Most Powerful Radio.